The White House Situation Room is shrouded in tension, the air thick with anticipation. The clock has just slipped past midnight on June 20th, 2025. The only light comes from glowing monitors and the faint gleam of polished wood, casting long shadows across the faces of those gathered. Every eye in the room is fixed on the screens, every mind racing with the gravity of the moment. President Trump sits at the head of the table, flanked by his most trusted advisors and military chiefs. Together they watch live feeds streaming in from across the globe, U.S. warships slicing through the dark waters of the Persian Gulf, their decks bristling with activity. Overhead, B-2 stealth bombers are already airborne, their silhouettes barely visible against the night sky, engines humming with purpose. The tension in the room is palpable, every second stretching out as the world holds its breath. This is no ordinary night, and this is no drill. Moments ago, Israel launched a sudden and devastating strike on Iran's nuclear and missile facilities. Fighter jets streaked across the sky, unleashing a barrage of missiles that lit up the darkness. Explosions ripple across military sites deep inside Iran, sending shockwaves through the region and beyond. The world has been thrust into a new and dangerous chapter. Across the globe, governments scramble to respond. Newsrooms buzz with urgent updates, and diplomats huddle in emergency meetings. The world is on edge, and the United States stands at a crossroads, its next move poised to shape the fate of nations. In Iran, air defense systems roar to life. Missile batteries are on high alert, radar operators scanning the skies for incoming threats. Anti-aircraft fire lights up the night as the nation braces for retaliation. The expectation of a swift and deadly response hangs over the region like a storm cloud. The U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, stationed in the Persian Gulf, is on the highest alert. Every ship, every aircraft, every intelligence asset is focused on the unfolding crisis. In command centers from Bahrain to Washington, analysts pore over satellite images and intercepted communications, searching for any sign of escalation. The president faces a decision that will echo through history. Should the United States stand firmly with Israel, risking a wider regional war and the lives of American troops, or should it hold back, risking the loss of credibility and influence on the world stage? Advisors debate fiercely, their voices low but urgent, hands gripping classified documents as they weigh the options. The Secretary of Defense warns that any military action could spiral into a drawn-out conflict, with U.S. forces in the region facing grave danger. The risks are immense, and the cost could be measured in both blood and treasure. Meanwhile, the Secretary of State cautions that the world economy teeters on the brink. Oil prices are already spiking, and alliances that have taken decades to build could shatter overnight. The diplomatic fallout could be as devastating as the military one. Yet the argument for decisive action is powerful. America's loyalty to Israel is unshakable, and the threat of a nuclear-armed Iran cannot be ignored. Some argue that now is the time to show American resolve, to send a message that the United States will not back down in the face of aggression. The stakes could not be higher. Energy markets are in turmoil, with oil refineries and trading floors bracing for chaos. In cities across the Middle East, millions of lives hang in the balance, their futures uncertain as the world teeters on the edge of conflict. The president listens intently, absorbing every word, every warning, every plea. He weighs the risks and the consequences, knowing that whatever choice he makes will shape the course of history for generations to come. The room is silent, save for the relentless ticking of the clock. Each tick is a reminder that time is running out, that the world waits for a decision that cannot be delayed. Every second brings the world closer to a turning point. Urgent data flashes across screens, and the anxious faces of world leaders betray the weight of the moment. The fate of nations, the stability of the global order, and the lives of millions hang in the balance. The choice must be made now. In this high-stakes moment, the president's hand hovers over the decision that could reshape history. The world holds its breath, waiting for what comes next. This crisis didn't erupt overnight. For weeks, the U.S. has quietly moved military assets into position. 2 carrier strike groups, F-22 squadrons, and Patriot missile batteries now ring Iran. Thousands of troops are on standby, deployment orders ready. Intelligence from Israel warned Iran was nearing a nuclear breakout, closing the window for action. The buildup was a calculated response, meant to deter Iran or prepare for war. Israel's sudden strike forced America's hand, turning warnings into reality. Now U.S. forces are the front line of a potential conflict. The chess pieces are in place and the game is real. The world watches as the U.S. decides its next move. The stakes have never been higher. Is this a prelude to war or a high-stakes bluff? The scale of the US deployment suggests real intent: 2 carrier groups, stealth fighters, thousands of troops. But it could also be coercive diplomacy, a show of force to push Iran back to the table. The risk: miscalculation. What's meant as a warning could trigger war. The line between bluff and battle is razor thin. With Israel's attack, the time for diplomacy is vanishing. The show of force is becoming reality. The world holds its breath. If the US were to launch a military attack on Iran, the outcome of a direct conventional war would almost certainly favor American forces. Iran's military, while formidable in some respects, cannot match the overwhelming firepower and advanced technology of the US. However, Iran doesn't need to win a traditional war to inflict serious damage. Instead, it can create chaos and uncertainty, leveraging its unique geographic and strategic advantages to disrupt the global order. Iran's ace up its sleeve is the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway that serves as the world's most critical oil choke point. Roughly a fifth of all global oil passes through this strait every day, making it a vital artery for the world economy. Any disruption here would have immediate and far-reaching consequences. Even the mere threat of closing the Strait of Hormuz would send oil prices skyrocketing overnight. The global markets are highly sensitive to instability in this region, and traders would react instantly, driving up prices and creating panic among investors and governments alike. Iran could deploy naval mines, launch anti-ship missiles from its coastline, and send swarms of fast attack boats to harass and potentially damage oil tankers. These asymmetric tactics are designed to make shipping through the strait dangerous and unpredictable, deterring commercial vessels and insurance companies from operating in the area. While the US Navy has the capability to eventually clear the strait and restore the flow of oil, this process would take time. The initial shock to the global economy would be immediate, with energy prices spiking and supply chains disrupted around the world. Beyond the strait, Iran's extensive network of proxy militias could launch attacks on US military bases, allied forces, and key infrastructure across the Middle East. These groups operate in countries like Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen, expanding the conflict far beyond Iran's borders. Such a conflict would quickly escalate into a global crisis, drawing in world leaders, dominating headlines, and forcing governments everywhere to respond. The ripple effects would be felt in every major economy, not just in the United States or the Middle East. Iran's strategy is clear: make any war so costly, so disruptive, and so unpredictable that the US and its allies are forced to reconsider their actions. By raising the stakes, Iran hopes to deter further escalation and force negotiations on its own terms. In this high-stakes game, the world economy hangs in the balance. Every decision, every threat, and every action has the potential to trigger a cascade of economic consequences, affecting everything from fuel prices to global trade. The stakes of this confrontation are not just military, they are truly global, touching the lives of billions of people and shaping the future of international relations and economic stability. Israel's preemptive strike was a bold gamble. For years, Israel warned a nuclear Iran was unacceptable. Diplomatic efforts failed, so Israel acted, targeting nuclear sites, command centers, and key scientists. But Israel's Air Force can't destroy Iran's deepest bunkers. Only the US has the bunker-buster bombs needed for those targets. By striking first, Israel forced America's hand. The message to Washington: finish what we started or risk letting Iran rebuild. The dilemma is now America's: act decisively or let an ally face the consequences alone. Israel's move has made its security problem a US crisis. The world waits for America's answer. This is classic entrapment, a smaller ally dragging a superpower into conflict. Israel started the fight counting on US support, but America isn't an unwilling partner. It's long declared a nuclear Iran unacceptable. The US helped build the pressure with bases and sanctions. Now the real dilemma is timing: act now, on Israel's terms, or wait. The crisis is out of Washington's control. The president must decide, on whose timeline will America act? Bombing Iran carries enormous risks, far beyond the battlefield. The decision to launch such an attack would set off a chain reaction, the consequences of which would ripple across the globe for years to come. It's not just about military might or strategic objectives, it's about the unpredictable and far-reaching impact on millions of lives. The human cost would be staggering, with civilian and military casualties on all sides. Hospitals would be overwhelmed, families torn apart and entire communities left in ruins. The suffering would not be limited to one nation. Innocent people across the region would pay the price. U.S. troops stationed throughout the Middle East would become immediate targets for retaliation. Bases would be fortified, soldiers placed on high alert, and the threat of attacks would loom over every patrol and convoy. At home, there's little appetite for another Middle East war. Protests and political backlash would be swift. The American public, weary from decades of conflict, would demand answers and accountability, putting immense pressure on leaders in Washington. Allies might condemn the action, fracturing coalitions that have taken years to build. Diplomatic relationships would be strained, and the United States could find itself increasingly isolated on the world stage, struggling to maintain support from even its closest partners. The conflict would spill across borders, destabilizing Iraq, Lebanon, and the Gulf. Regional powers might be drawn in, and the violence could ignite new fronts, making the situation even more volatile and unpredictable. Terrorist groups could exploit the chaos, using the instability to recruit and launch attacks. Meanwhile, waves of refugees would flee the violence, creating humanitarian crises that neighboring countries and aid organizations would struggle to manage. War's unpredictability is the greatest danger. No plan survives first contact. Commanders would be forced to adapt to rapidly changing conditions, and the fog of war could lead to mistakes with devastating consequences. Escalation could draw in Russia or China, risking a global confrontation. The involvement of other major powers would raise the stakes dramatically, turning a regional conflict into a potential flashpoint for world war. The president faces a decision with consequences he can't fully control. Every move is scrutinized, every option weighed, but the outcome remains uncertain. The burden of leadership in such moments is almost unimaginable. The risks are immense, the margin for error razor-thin. A single miscalculation could trigger a cascade of events that spiral out of control, with repercussions felt around the world. Every option is fraught with peril. There are no easy answers, no guaranteed outcomes, only difficult choices and the hope that wisdom will prevail over impulse. The weight of history rests on this moment. Decisions made now will be judged for generations to come, shaping not only the future of one nation, but the fate of the world itself. The world stands at a crossroads. The U.S. must choose intervene alongside Israel, risking a devastating war, or pull back and face accusations of weakness. Intervention means airstrikes, surging oil prices, and global instability. Restraint means criticism, a possible nuclear Iran, and questions about American resolve. There's no easy answer, only dangerous options. The president's decision will ripple across the globe for years. Alliances will be tested, economies shaken, and new conflicts may ignite. If America retreats, adversaries may be emboldened. If it attacks, the world could plunge into chaos. The world watches, hoping for wisdom, bracing for war. This moment could define a new, more dangerous era.